Hey, third time is the charm here at the Collapse Experiment. I have tried to go live 3 separate times and had to restart and do all this stuff all over again. Welcome back to another episode of the Oklahoma City bombing 30 years later. Today we are discussing a different book. I'm switching it up, but we're staying on a topic that we covered last time. This is The Secret Life of Bill Clinton, The Unreported Stories by Ambrose Evans Picard. So, this guy, there's no cigar talk in this book. I know some of you will be disappointed, but what it does have is a whole lot of other things. You've got the Parks murder. Let's see here. What? Some of these chapters are just Vince Foster. Vince Foster. Yes, remember that name. There's a whole lot about Vince Foster in here. The Dixie Mafia, Barry Seal, Air Contra, and the Mina Airport, Death Squads. But it also has Andreas Strassmeyer and Carol Howe, which we are going to be talking about today. It is a long chapter, but seeing that I read this, was it last year? It was a while ago. You can also get this book at thrift books for like $5 or under. It's one of those political books that come out all the time. They're like a dime a dozen. Sometimes you can get them at like Dollar Tree a year or two later because once they're out, and the first people that grab them are the only people that read them. But this one has some juicy stuff in it. So chapter 5 is Carol Howe, and I'm going to be going over the highlighted portions in this because there's a lot to it, but the stuff that I remember highlighting was the stuff that really stuck out to me, and I really don't want to cover the entire chapter, which I believe is about 25 pages. So to get started, Carol Elizabeth Howe was recruited as a confidential informant by the U.S. Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms on August 25th, 1994. So less than a year before the event. Her task was to gather intelligence on Dennis Mahon and the White Aryan Resistance. She was 23 years old, a petite figure, beautifully coiffed, sandy blonde hair, a swastika tattoo on her left shoulder, and a pentagram on her right ankle. Her motive was listed by the ATF as personal vendetta and public safety. The silliness took a serious form for the worse in the spring of 1994 when she jumped off a wall to escape a group of black youths and broke both her heels. In retaliation, she called Dennis Mahon's Dial a Racist hotline. This is how they met. Her flirtation with the White Aryan Resistance would last 6 weeks. It ended as violently as it had begun when Dennis Mahon allegedly graped her. She fled to her grandfather's ranch in Texas. So this is where this was her motivation for turning into a confidential informant, personal vendetta. Most certainly, said Caroline. More than that, she wanted to get these lunatics off the street before they provoked a race war or blew something up. Interesting. They signed a 2-page contract enlisting her at a pay of $25 per day plus expenses. $25 per day. What is that? Was that like minimum wage at the time? Maybe $4.15 an hour. $25 per day. 5 days later, Special Agent Finley submitted the opening report to the ATF terrorist extreme investigation of the White Aryan Resistance. It outlined her preliminary debriefing of confidential informant CI 183, the code number by which Carol would be known. On August 30th, 1994, Carol passed her first ATF polygraph test, as she did every test thereafter. The war investigation was designated significant sensitive, which meant that it had potential national interest and that ATF headquarters in Washington, D.C. should be kept apprised. Carol was quite a find for the ATF. Wild, fearless, a talented actress, she was willing to do practically anything. Oh, yes, we'll find out how far she was willing to go. But she was not a snitch, and that would cause problems. The ATF likes to work with criminal defendants who have rolled over to avoid prosecution. Snitches can be controlled, but Carol did not have any criminal record, which is rare. She was a volunteer performing a public service, and as we shall see, trying to redeem herself in the eyes of her parents. They did not like her. I don't understand why. I got Dennis talked into making them real, and she did so on camera. Later, I think this is regarding grenades, which is a big no-no. But the feds love this stuff. Yeah, we took a fake grenade and we're trying to make it real. This is like all the time. Waco, a UPS driver dropped off a box. The box broke open and fake paperweights that looked like grenades fell out, and he reported it to the ATF, and that started the investigation at Waco. But yeah, they do love themselves some grenades. Later, we went to Elohim City and blew them up, she told JD Cash. So she was even talking to JD Cash. By now, the focus was already shifting from Mahon to Elohim City. Carol's early reports have been so disturbing that the ATF wanted her to infiltrate the cult, find out what kind of weaponry they had, and profile the key radicals. It was an extremely dangerous mission. She learned at worship that execution was the penalty for any informant who caused a member of the group to go to prison. That's tough. In September, she was given her first taste of Andy the German. It would take her 3 months to discover that he was Andreas Karl Strassmeyer, born May 17th, 1959. He made her crawl underneath barbed wire while he fired a .45 caliber pistol at her feet. His idea of a loyalty test. Such a nice guy. The mood of apocalyptic frenzy was engulfing Elohim City. There were now nightly patrols and daily paramilitary maneuvers. Fully automatic weapons were being stockpiled in anticipation of a Waco-style raid. It's not like the ATF was planning on raiding it or anything before April 19th, 1995. The flag of the Branch Davidians was hanging in the chapel as a constant reminder of the assault on Mount Carmel on Patriots' Day, April 19th, 1993. But Waco was only part of the drama. The date of April 19th, 1995 had multiple significance for Elohim City. It was the 10-year anniversary of the federal assault on the white supremacist encampment in Arkansas known as Covenant Sword and Arm of the Lord. The compound had surrendered to federal agents on April 19th, 1985, 10 years to the day before the OKC boom boom. Interesting. Nobody really points that out either. Like, there's a whole hell of a lot going on April 19th. It so happens that Snell was executed in Arkansas on April 19th, 1995, a few hours after the OKC bombing. Yeah, Snell was, let's see here. His chief accomplice was Richard Wayne Snell, a neo-fascist cult hero who edited a newsletter called The Seekers and was a member of Elohim's extended family. At the Arkansas Department of Corrections, Snell was fulminating about bombs and catastrophic retribution. He repeatedly predicted that there would be a bombing or an explosion on the day of his death, said prison official Alan Abels in an interview with the Denver Post. I moved my wife aboard a federal installation to spend the day and possibly the next night because I didn't feel safe with her at home. The prison took the exceptional step of transporting Snell to the execution chamber by helicopter. Pastor Mills ministered to Snell during the final hours before the lethal injection. According to a documentary by the Canadian Broadcast Company, the prison death watch log notes that Snell made a request at 12:20 p.m. that the television in his cell be turned on. He watched the early coverage of the OKC bombing. At 12:30, the log notes News 4 special on the situation in Oklahoma. Inmate Snell watching newscasts, smiling and chuckling. As instructed by the ATF, Carol had befriended Strassmeyer. She cooked for him, she did his laundry, she cleaned his house, and reported back on the 30 cans of ammunition and grenade casings he kept in storage. This took self-sacrifice. The skinny, buck-toothed fanatic was not exactly her type. She could hardly understand his guttural accent anyway, but she succeeded in tempting him. Carol Howe and Strassmeyer got it on. Andy and I talked of us, and he said he was definitely attracted to me, and I have a chance of being his marriage partner. Read her notes from November 24th, 1994. This was later followed by a terse notation that the mission was accomplished. I secured an intimate personal relationship with Andy, and I am now his girlfriend. Oh my God. I'd be pissed off too if I was like, hey, this is going to happen. I know what Andy's pee-pee tastes like. Just please, God, don't let it happen. And then they let it happen, and I'd probably lose my freaking mind too. This is confirmation that Agent Finley's monthly report dated November 29th, 1994, which states that Strassmeyer had discussed plans to bring down the United States government with direct actions such as assassinations and bombings. Bombings is underlined. And mass shootings. The word bombing is underlined in the handwritten notes of Finley's debriefing of Carol. By Christmas, the plot had taken shape. Strassmeyer and Mahon, the ringleaders, had picked 3 possible targets for the attack on the state of Oklahoma: the IRS and federal buildings in Tulsa, and the federal building in Oklahoma City. Carol has stated under oath that she reported these threats to the ATF case officer. I wrote down about blowing up federal buildings, she testified. I related the way we relayed it. She later said that she informed the ATF on paper that something called the Morrow Building had been mentioned as one of the targets. The ATF denies this adamantly, but Carol is vindicated by an FBI write-up of her debriefing on April 21st, 1995 at the FBI's OK Bomb Command Center in Oklahoma City. It said that Dennis Mahon had discussed targeting federal installations for destruction through bombing such as the IRS building, the Tulsa Federal Building, and the Oklahoma City Federal Building. She said that Strassmeyer and Mahon had taken 3 trips to Oklahoma City in November 1994, December 1994, and February 1995. She had accompanied the group once in December 1994. Then there's an interview. Special Agent Angela Finney has a great deal of explaining to do, but it is unfair to pick on her alone, for she was put in an impossible position by the FBI. The document trail shows that the Tulsa office of the ATF was ready to take action against the White Aryan Resistance in February 1995. Carol Howe had succeeded in filming Strassmeyer preparing hand grenades, and the ATF was preparing for a possible raid on Elohim City to arrest him. It had requested INS participation in the raid because Strassmeyer was an illegal alien. The Oklahoma Highway Patrol had been alerted that Andreas Strassmeyer carries a .45 auto pistol at all times. If he is stopped and has the gun on him, the ATF will file the charges. Illegal aliens cannot purchase or carry firearms in the States. They don't have constitutional rights. But the FBI muscled in and prevented the arrest. On February 22nd, 1995, Agent Finney was notified by the Oklahoma Highway Patrol that the FBI also had an ongoing investigation in Elohim City. It's funny, isn't Larry Potts working for the FBI? One can imagine the shock of this rookie ATF agent when she discovered that she had unwittingly stumbled on a much bigger sting being conducted by the FBI, probably a counterintelligence operation like PACON, maybe. Kind of like PACON. Approved at the highest levels in Washington. Larry Potts. For whatever reason, Strassmeyer was being protected by the Bureau. When the bomb went off, Carol was devastated. The first thing I thought is that they had done it, she said. They had taken the next step and done the things that they said they were going to do. There were plans to send her back for a second visit in May 1995 to crack open this secret. Let's see here. But the mission was aborted after the ATF office in Tulsa was informed that Pastor Robert Miller suspected that Carol was a confidential informant. The ATF, of course, had no idea that Pastor Miller was actually working for the FBI. Everybody here is sketchy. When Tim McVeigh and Terry Nichols tried to blow up a milk jug with a small fertilizer bomb in October 1994, the experiment was a fiasco. The blasting cap just sprayed the ammonium nitrate everywhere. It didn't work, said Michael Fortier at McVeigh's trial. The Justice Department claimed that McVeigh improved his technique over the next 6 months by studying the bomb manual, Homemade C4. He didn't make C4. But the book describes a laborious process of baking ammonium nitrate in small cans. He didn't use small cans. It would take weeks to build a 4,800-pound truck bomb this way, and it would not solve the technical challenge of achieving simultaneous detonation. Yeah, that keeps coming up. By now, Carol was a massive liability to the FBI, the Justice Department, and the Clinton administration as a whole. Even if she remained silent, there was always a risk that McVeigh's defense team would find out about her as it honed in on Elohim City. Indeed, it was likely FBI agent James Blanchard had slipped up by calling her Carol instead of CI 53270-183 in a memo obtained by the defense team under legal discovery. In fact, McVeigh's lawyers did not know they had it buried in the 22,111 pages of documents. In early December 1996, she was discovered by J.D. Cash, who had been tipped off about her affair with Andrea Strassmeyer. Told ya. Cash called her house and left a message on her answering machine. She did not reply, but the FBI was clearly not going to hazard anything to chance. Days later, on December 13th, 1996, the FBI raided Carol's house, alleging that a telephone hotline for the Aryan Intelligence Network, registered in her name, had broadcast a bomb threat. The U.S. government was turning on Carol's cover against her, the ultimate nightmare for every clandestine operative. The FBI would later claim they did not know she was still on the active informant roster for the ATF, or that she had ever been an ATF informant for that matter. But the FBI official who orchestrated the raid, Special Agent Pete Rickle, was the same man who had discussed witness protection with Carol 8 months earlier. Douchebag. His face flushed red. Rickle would later admit under cross-examination in court that he had rebuffed Carol when she asked for witness protection. 11 days later, she agreed to talk to J.D. Cash, the first time she had ever divulged a word to the press. As they discussed Andrea Strassmeyer on the telephone, she dropped a bombshell. Andy never was much of a lover, she said. That's a bombshell? Are you serious? All he wanted to do was blow up federal buildings. Cash was flabbergasted. He called me in Washington, flushed with excitement, and played the tape. It was a validation of everything Cash had been saying for a year about the Elohim conspiracy. When J.D. Cash published the astounding scoop in the McCurtain Daily Gazette, it set off an earthquake. The Justice Department had insisted time and again that no agency of the U.S. government had had an informant in Elohim City. It was a demonstrable lie for which, by the way, nobody has ever been sanctioned or held to account. Now there was a frantic campaign to prevent any major news outlet from picking up the Cash story. An ABC's news segment on Carol Howe was pulled at the last minute on February 5th, 1997. The ABC producers for 2020 are sitting in a lobby at ABC's KTUL affiliate in Tulsa, waiting to watch the program, only to find that it had been replaced by a segment on New Zealand, because people care about New Zealand. When it became clear that the piece was never going to run, the assistant producer, retired Marine Lieutenant Colonel Roger Charles, spoke out in protest, appearing on Don Imus' show. He accused Peter Jennings and top management of ABC News of caving in to political pressure. He was fired immediately. You too. Jeez. For the Justice Department, it was a victory, of course. Nobody learned anything worthwhile from the McVeigh trial, but it now had to deal with the consequences of indicting the irrepressible daughter of a very wealthy man. Carol's pugnacious lawyer, Clark Brewster, was running rings around the U.S. Attorney's office in Tulsa, and this time the judge was standing up against the executive branch. He compelled the ATF to produce Agent Finley's reports under legal discovery. These would prove that Carol Howe was still a U.S. government operative on December 13th, 1996, the day that the FBI raided her house. And she was acquitted on all charges on Friday, August 1st, 1997. The Clinton administration had fired and missed. Now there would be settling of accounts. Yeah, that is the Carol Howe story in a nutshell. She just could not get a break. What the hell? Hey, I'm here to save a whole lot of people, and y'all done messed up. So, yeah. Let me look at this. Strassmeyer. I didn't really end up highlighting a whole lot in the Strassmeyer piece. I mean, it was just a lot of covering his background, like what was in the other book. Well, I guess I could go over the highlighted parts here. So this is from the Chapter 6, Lieutenant Andrea Strassmeyer, Panzer Grenada. The right wing in the U.S. is incredibly easy to penetrate if you know how to talk to them, he said. This is Strassmeyer, making it clear that he considered himself a gifted artist. Of course, it's easier for a foreigner with an accent. Nobody would ever suspect a German of working for the federal government. Is he admitting that he was working for the federal government? Sounds that way. Boy, we caught hell over that one, said Kenny Pence, the driver who towed Andreas's 1983 maroon Chevy. Some lawyer in Houston called and said that they'd made a bad mistake arresting him. You know, we hear that all the time. But then the phone calls started coming in from the State Department, from the governor's office, and then someone called and said that he had diplomatic immunity. Yeah, inside the briefcase in this car that was impounded, the terrorist handbook, which explains how to build an ANFO bomb out of fertilizer and fuel oil. Did we not just learn from the previous chapter that all the stuff that McVeigh had did not cover ANFO bombs with fertilizer and fuel oil? And how to make detonators with a delayed fuse. There was also job applicant forms for the INS and the DEA, foreign bank statements showing that Andreas was not nearly as poor as he pretended, and a stash of documents in German. One was a letter revealing that he was trying to purchase a Boeing 747 from Lufthansa. This was supposedly part of a scheme by Colonel Petruski to set up an air cargo service in Latin America. Nothing came of that idea either, apparently. They was planning on running some drugs. It is shortly after the Waco assault in the late spring of 1993 that Strassmeyer met Tim McVeigh at a Tulsa gun show. Bullshit. That was the first time they publicly met, but they were at, I believe, Jack Oliphant's place, learning how to make explosives. Before that, he sold McVeigh a U.S. Navy combat knife and bought a pair of camouflage pants in exchange. They shared a few brief thoughts on the FBI's deployment of tanks against the Branch Davidians. We spoke for 5 minutes. That's all, said Andreas. Bullshit. But they must have hit it off. He gave McVeigh's telephone number at Elohim. He purchased his full BDUs with his name on it and everything. It wasn't just a pair of pants. That's not the truth of it. Because the bomb goes off. Strassmeyer's in hiding. He admits to somebody, like, I have his uniform. 2 years later, McVeigh made the phone call that would embroil Strassmeyer in the Oklahoma City bombing mystery. It was recorded at 1:46 p.m. on April 5th, 1995, seconds after McVeigh had telephoned a Ryder truck rental office in Arizona. Tell Andy I'll be coming through, was all that McVeigh had said. It was enough. I don't know why McVeigh was trying to contact me, said Andreas. Liar. He's a liar. They like to hold pasture parties on Route 77. Tim was there, but he never drank. He was always in control, she said. It was weird that summer. There was always this elder gentleman with Tim, mid-40s, with a red sports car. He seemed out of place, but he was always around. This is regarding... Let's see here. The group used to hang around at a house in Harrington, Kansas. She shared with a dissipated party girl named Lindsay Johnson. The scene was so debauched, in fact, that Katina moved out soon afterwards and severed her ties with her old roommate, but she was a witness for long enough to observe that the McVeigh crowd was heavily involved in drugs, frequently with high school teenagers. Ugh. I showed Katina the photograph of Andreas Strassmeyer standing in jeans and a lumberjack shirt in front of an American flag. She recognized him at once. Oh, yes, his name is Andy. He speaks with a German accent. He came to my house once. It was either Christmas of 92 or New Year's of 93. Yeah, they met for the first time in 94. Uh-huh. Tell me another story, Andy. He had crooked teeth. I remember he was dressed in black and he had this very white skin. He mentioned that his daddy was some big shot in Germany. I thought he seemed kind of odd. Those tricks don't work here, big boy. Nobody cares about your country. In the most damning of the witness sightings, McVeigh was seen with Strassmeyer and Michael Brusha 11 days before the bombing. 3 men were at a strip club in Tulsa called Lady Godiva's. We know that the date was April 8th because the security cameras in the dressing room caught 3 of the dancers chatting on tape. J.D. Cash discovered the tape, made a copy before the FBI came to confiscate the original. For once, the critical piece of evidence is available to the public instead of being sucked into the black hole of the official investigation. Who is in charge of the tapes at the FBI? Because everything just seems to disappear, right? Like the tapes of the plane flying in the Pentagon, those just kind of, and all the tapes of the truck going boom in Oklahoma City, they just kind of. Any recordings of what happened with Epstein? Those just didn't work. She returns a little later to discuss business with her colleague Sean T. Ferens, who is standing with her back to the camera wearing nothing but a red G-string and high heels. What time do you get off? About 10:30. You know these guys I'm sitting out here with. Well, one of them says he's looking for a girl to fool around with tonight. Are you interested? No, I don't do that kind of thing. I don't do that kind of thing all weekend. Oh, all weekend? He already knows I'm married. I won't do it. Oh, I've got to scam him somehow, said Sean after thinking about it. I kissed his forehead. He's got this really sweaty forehead. Gross, laughed Sean. Unfortunately, it is not possible to question Sean about her night on the town with McVeigh, Strassmeyer, and Brusha. She was found dead in her apartment, age 23, shortly after the existence of the tape became known. The death was ruled a self-deletion. Funny how all this stuff it's the same scenario over and over again. The different agencies weren't cooperating, he said. In fact, they were working against each other. You even had a situation where one branch of the FBI was investigating and not sharing anything with another branch of the FBI. Overall, however, he was protective of the Bureau. It was the ATF that evoked intense feelings of bitterness, betrayal, and anger. He said that the sting operation acquired a momentum of its own as the ATF tried to ice the cake for more dramatic effect. Whoever thought this thing up was an idiot, in my opinion. And this is Strassmeyer. I am told that they thought it would be better to put a bigger bomb in there. The bigger, the better. It would make them more guilty. McVeigh knew he was delivering a bomb, but he had no idea what was in the truck. He just wanted to shake things up a little, make a gesture. According to your source, that is correct. The bomb was never meant to explode. They were going to arrest McVeigh at the site with the bomb in hand, but he didn't come at the right time. Maybe he changed the time. You never know with people who are so unreliable. What time were they expecting the truck? I asked. I have heard that it was in the middle of the night between 2 and 3 in the morning. The truck had a transmitter so they could track it with a radio receiving device. I don't know how they could have lost contact. I think there was misinformation that the operation had been canceled. This is all straight from Strassmeyer. Okay. There comes a time in every Bosch operation when the informant has to speak out to save his own skin, and that's now, Andreas. How can he? He shouted into the telephone. What happens if it was a sting operation from the very beginning? What happens if it comes out that the plant was a provocateur? A provocateur? What if he talked and manipulated the others into it? What then? The country couldn't handle it. The relatives of the victims are going to go crazy. He's going to be held responsible for the murder of 168 people. That is true. Of course, the informant can't come forward. He's scared shitless right now. How would he know? It sounds to me as if you've got a problem, Andreas. Shiza! Oh my god. But the response of the CIA remains a secret. The agency provided its findings to provocateur Beth Wilkinson, who refused to hand the material to McVeigh's defense team. The Justice Department even ignored a motion to compel without suffering any sanction from Judge Mash. At the end of the trial, McVeigh's lawyers still did not know what the CIA had revealed about its ties to the mysterious Andreas Strassmeyer. Whole lot in that book right there. A whole heck of a lot. Yeah. Basically, Strassmeyer, trying to be crafty in how he's talking about things, admits that he was the agent provocateur, that the ATF, in his opinion, or from his source, the ATF had actually switched out the device in the back of the truck. McVeigh didn't know what he was delivering, and he was supposed to just be arrested when he showed up. All fascinating. Actually, you know what? I'm going to just everything in this book is fascinating. So yeah, there's a ton about Vince Foster. What the hell else is in here? I'm just going to go through let's see here. It covers the Oklahoma City bombing. Talks about John Doe number 2. Vince Foster, the most unethical administration in the history of the Republic. Clinton. Come to Arkansas. You might even learn a thing or two. And this is about the Death Squad, the Dixie Mafia, drug trafficking operation Barry Seal, Iran, Air Contra, and the Mina Airport, the Mina twins, and Paula Jones. No cigars. Oh no, this is basically like early Clinton and some of his stuff as governor. But yeah, those are the bits about Carol Howe, Andrea Strassmeyer, the two that unfortunately at one point in time, yeah. Can things get any weirder? We'll find out, because I still have much more to go over in the let's see here, coming month, April 19th. Yeah, we've got still a month of building up to the 30th anniversary. I'm going to keep doing these live feeds and bringing you more info from all of these books and articles and stuff that I've collected over the years. And maybe people can get a better picture as to what the hell happened that day and afterwards. So in the meantime, hope everyone's doing well. Keep on typing.